Why, hello everyone. It's good to see you. Let me take a look here through what I'm doing and give you a hint as to how it's going. First, I was brave, and it paid off. A little bit of changing to the way that the priority on the pipes worked, and it got the Oxylite refinery at 100% capacity, which is more than I could have ever asked for. As for, let me see here, some of the different pieces and parts, I've gone with glorious golden fluids once again. Just like the batteries over here, so too will be the batteries on this side, controlling the ethanol distillers. Which, at the moment, the ethanol distillers are only running for the sheer purpose of trying to gain their own atmosphere. Over here I've got some 20 tanks, I do believe, which at 5 tons a pop means I'm probably holding about getting ready to hold about 100 tons worth of ethanol, and I've calculated that if I want the pressure in here to be roughly 100 kilograms per tile, then I need 220 tons worth of ethanol liquid to be sitting inside of bottles ready to get hot. Now, the reason that I've chosen ethanol as the gas medium is not only does it have very similar stats to hydrogen, which makes it quite nice as a thermal conduit, but also it's so heavy that CO2 will rise to the top, meaning that as these ethanol distillers, all of their CO2 will be eaten by the carbon skimmers at the top here. Currently, they're only keeping the system clean, because down below I've got a skimmer as well, keeping a floor to the place. For air, since I've run so low on sand to the point that I've had to start manually crushing it just for the purpose of running other machines, I've been relying more or less permanently on the electrolyzer array, leaving it on low power mode pretty much permanently. The hydrogen cost isn't bad. It isn't bad at all. Once the temperatures get up and it starts running the natural gas generators in tandem, then everything will be working quite nicely. Did I make sure? Yes, I did. I did make sure to stop pumping in additional cold stuff. Actually, oh, 130. Weird. Why isn't it telling the batteries to run it then? Which one? Which one? 80, 80, 80, 70, 70, 60, 80, 70, 60. Weird. Let's look at the automation overlay again. It's giving a green signal everywhere. At least on 3 of the lines. Then what's in the way? What could be in the... Oh, right. As you can see, I am desperately low on sand pretty much everywhere. Let's see here. How about just 5,000 on a priority 9? Well, that'll kick those back into gear and save on some of the hydrogen cost. Oh, right, I have to explain what I'm doing with all of this oil. Instead of going through the process of purifying it and getting all sorts of petroleum for using in the glorious golden conduits that I'm using all over the place here, I think that the idea of the crude makes sense, because the crude oil down here, let me click on it, there we are, its properties say that it has the exact same thermal conductivity as the petroleum, although its specific heat capacity isn't quite as good. However, I was looking at the specific heat capacities of quite a few liquids. For example, if we take a look at the petroleum, now, I'll go ahead and touch on that first. If we take a look at the petroleum here, let me just pause so that it doesn't pause on me. We'll see that its specific heat capacity at 1.7 something is slightly better than the 1.6 something of the crude oil. However, I've noticed that it has a mass per tile of roughly 740, was it perhaps? Let me take a look here. Yeah, roughly 740. Yeah, mass per tile. Whereas the crude oil has a mass of right about 800 and... oh, how much was it? 870, I think, on the dot pretty much. Yeah, 870. Mass per tile. Whereas if we go and look at water, it's 1,000 per tile. Same for polluted water is 1,000 per tile. But if we go and start looking for some more exotic materials like brine, it's 1,200 per tile. And if I can find it, salt water is 1,100 per tile. Now, if we take a look at the properties of the brine, its specific heat capacity is 3.4 something, meaning that not only is its mass quite a great deal more than either the crude oil or the petroleum, but its specific heat capacity is quite a bit more. Now, its thermal conductivity may be about a quarter of the conductivity of either of the previously mentioned materials. But let me also find salt water so that we can see its specific heat capacity at 4.1, even higher, and a thermal conductivity of 0.6. And then if I can find some of it, let's find oh, I should have gone there for... if I can find the water here, it's got the specific heat capacity of 4.179, which is really, really good, and a thermal conductivity of 0.6, which does make it very, very close to like one of the best few in the game. Arguably, many say that polluted water, if I can find a good sampling of it, here we can find some. Its specific heat capacity is, I think, the exact same. However, its thermal conductivity is just a teeny touch lower. The only thing that makes it technically better than water is that it has a really good working range, plus and minus 20 above the 100 and 0 markers, making it 40 degrees total, a greater working range. Now, when looking up here again, my idea was that I would consider, after filling in this thing for the all the way up, I would crack open this portion here and place like a mechanical door in place, and then go ahead and pump under pressure using this liquid vent, since its maximum pressure is something like 1,000 kilograms. That's way higher than the pressure per block of crude oil. And if I have it in a sealed chamber up here at the top, I can pressurize the oil, making it to where it's not quite as paper thin, having just a little bit more in the way of a thermal mass to it, but also being a nice conductive agent to go around all of my reservoirs full of natural gas. Natural gas also has some interesting properties. Really nice specific heat capacity, but its thermal conductivity is almost like insulators, which makes it very difficult to suck heat out of. I think that the only few that are more difficult than that might be like CO2. Let's get a good look at CO2 real quick. Ah, yeah, look at that thermal conductivity. Very, very low. Very difficult to both suck energy out of and pump energy into CO2. But of course, difficult as it may be, if you take a look inside of the here, you can see that I am absolutely doing my best to pump energy into and out of the CO2. because it's supposed to come out of these machines over 200 degrees. It loses that temperature almost immediately and then kind of back and forth equalizes as it goes through the various layers in here before exiting. And yeah, it's hot when it comes out. It says it's hot at least. Oh, that's a good one. No, that's actually connected. Insulated gas pipe inside of a piece of gold inside of a... Well, yeah, that's probably the best temperature rating that I can get for it. On the exiting of the chamber. The exact same temperature as the chamber. Maybe minus a degree. But speaking of paper thin, when we start looking at other materials, such as copper versus gold, we can see that they've got the same thermal conductivity, which is a skyrocketing 60. But then we've got that heat capacity, 0.385. Very, very thin. Especially when you consider that it always has a mass of 100 kilograms per tile, basically. Then we look at something even thinner, gold, 0.129. Just absolutely ribbon thin, hardly existent, but super conductive. And then we take a look at something more like steel. It's quite a bit thicker from a point of view of heat, and it's not quite as conductive, but it's so close that we're just splitting hairs, really. And that melting point is insane. Steel is easily the best material in the game, making it so much better than its little brother, iron. And taking... Yeah. I think that the only difference between iron and what is it? The bar version of it, not the ore version of it, but the refined version. Where in the hell is it? There it is. Refined iron is just the conductivity, same as steel. Not quite as nice as of a melting point. It's got, I think, a little bit more in the way of a specific heat capacity, but it's inferior to steel in all ways. And then we look at aluminum, of all things. Absolute space metal. It is nearly like... It has a specific heat capacity better than granite, making it stone-like. Its thermal conductivity is through the roof at a whopping 205. Its melting point is nice and low to go and balance things out, which is surprisingly interesting. And, you know what? Although I can't go and check for myself, I would swear that most of the info in here, if it isn't dead on accurate, it is close enough. It is so close. Especially when we start looking at things like the working temperature of plastic. Heat capacity, absolutely amazing. Thermal conductivity, not too high, pretty darn low. Melting point, ridiculously low. I used to work with molten plastics all the time. So as for which type of plastic it is, I think it's just generic. Just like this isn't any type of crude or any type of petroleum somewhere. Oh, hello. Did this actually manage to shove that little bit out of the way? Glad that I went with just 100 kilograms per tile. That way it doesn't accidentally melt the, drown out the machines. Weird. Let's look at the shipping overlay. It's overly complicated so that some of the incoming lumber has a chance to pre-warm inside of the steam box, and then or inside of the battery box, and then once it gets down into the steam box, everything just sits around and waits until it gets used by the machines. As for the, what's it called, the polluted dirt that's going to be off-put by this in the far right-hand tile of the 4 tiles that it occupies in width, I'm having that evacuated to these central lines, because it just so seems that, as we're seeing right here at this location of this lumber, that there's a bit of off-gassing of the machine, I think. I can't be 100% sure. I think this is the tile that the CO2 comes out of. You know, 2 spaces to the left of where the polluted dirt is dumped out of. Although for some strange reason I have a small mountain of polluted dirt right here too. I wonder why. Polluted dirt times 13. That might have actually just been one of the duplicates making an accident, picking up and dropping things on purpose. But now I've at least given you a chance to see things through my eyes, just how thick some materials can be, and just how thin others are, and my ideas around some of these layerings are just because they look beautiful. Other ones of these layerings are because I wanted to, where is it? I wanted to look at it and actually envision how the thermal mass would be represented in the end. You know, this one, the ethanol, I want to keep it as a liquid. You know, so that it's a weird stripy thing. I potentially should have placed yellow up here on the top. That would have been perhaps a little much. Unnecessary. At least today. But yeah, thermal masses. So very interesting to me. Especially when we take a look at this ethanol. Its heat capacity. Very nice. Its conductivity. Not too nice for a liquid. I mean, you know, water was 609, right? And then we go looking at ethanol gas. Let's see here. Its properties don't change too much. But now that we're looking at it from the point of view of a gas, really good properties. Really good properties. Plus it fills up an area well. God, and then this. I'll eventually fix it. These are gotta be over almost... These are gonna be 1500 days old, and they have not changed in temperature by the slightest little twitch. I'm definitely gonna be cracking that open eventually and just popping them out and pumping up in even more chlorine. Just pump it in until the walls start to give in to the pressure. Why not? My cauldron, I swear. I will have more sand for you soon. Lord Nurgle, you've given me all I could ever ask for.